In this asylum, I run the place. I love the look upon your face. In this asylum, I wish you well, 'cause I'll be standing at the gates of hell. Between the sad thoughts of you and me, mixed with twisted imagery. Toxic love affair, and toxic goddamn air.
Hey guys, and welcome to the American Ghost Hunter Show. Sorry for the delay. Skype wanted to do an update and it's just made an annoyance of itself and it's dragged everything out. So I do apologise that we're 10 minutes late. As you can see, my co-host with me today is Annie Weeble. How you doing, Annie?
I am doing very well, thank you. How are you guys?
We're good. And my special guest this evening, or the afternoon, or the morning, wherever you're watching, is Mr. James Cloud. How are you doing, sir?
I'm very well. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you. Thank you for finding the time to come on the show. Really appreciate it.
You're welcome. Happy to do it.
Sorry? Happy to do it. Good, thank you. I hope you are. I hope any guest is happy to do it. Otherwise, then that kind of defeats the object. But James is a very busy man. He's got lots of strings to his bow, let's say. But what I think we should kick off with, if that's okay, James, could you tell us about the paranormal research team that you're part of?
Yeah, I'm part of the Paranormal Research Investigators of St. Michael. I'm also the superior for the Advent Catholic Church's Order of Exorcists. And have an exorcist, 2 demonologists under me, actually 3 exorcists. And been doing the paranormal stuff, the exorcisms, for about 26 years-ish.
Okay. So how did... I mean, have you always been part of the Catholic Church?
No, I was actually raised in a Protestant church, and but my dad was in deliverance ministry in the Protestant churches, and I was right on his coattails the entire time. And when I turned 18, I became a minister in the Protestant churches and continued deliverance ministries, which is basically exorcisms, until my mid-20s, and then I went over to the Church of England, at the Anglican Church, and I was consecrated. First I was ordained a deacon, of course, then a parish priest, and I was a parish priest for about 10 years, and then consecrated a bishop about 3 years ago.
So you were basically sleeping with the enemy then, I suppose?
You bet.
I mean, obviously, because the Church of England, for those of you watching that don't know, basically tried to kick the Catholics out of England by burning down all the abbeys, taking away anything of worth that they had, and that was all thanks to King Henry VIII, basically. Decided to install himself as the head of the church. So basically, the head of the Church of England is our monarch. So there you go. There's a little history lesson for you if you didn't know that, guys. So what made you decide to become a Catholic?
Well, I was actually, I was an exorcist in the Anglican Church for, probably, ever since I was a deacon.
Okay.
So,
Can I just ask, is there a difference between being a Protestant exorcist and a Catholic exorcist, other than the attire?
No, not really.
Okay.
You attack it pretty much in the same way, so it wasn't much of a transition on that end.
So to be ordained to do Catholic exorcisms versus Protestant isn't really any different, because I know I come from very Southern Baptist background, and you talk about deliverance ministry. When you talk about deliverance ministry here in West Virginia, it's like literally the laying of hands, but you go to a Catholic church, and there's so many more regulations that it seems like you have to meet. So the difference on that level, I guess.
Sure. Well, the Roman Catholic Church absolutely has a ton of red tape. From what I understand, from request to getting a visit from an actual exorcist can take up to 2 years, just because of the red tape. I'm part of a Orthodox Old Catholic jurisdiction right now, and the red tape just isn't there. And since I'm the superior for the Order of Exorcists, the buck stops with me anyway. And so I basically vet anything coming through, and then my demonologists, as well as my exorcists, tackle anything in their locations, and then if travel's needed, that occurs. But really, the way I work, laying on of hands, just getting to it. You know, I've never been much for ritual. My old bishop, he said, you know, James, you're a great Christian, but you're a poor priest. And I go, I can deal with that.
Okay.
And just because, you know, ritual to me is a tool. It's not the end-all, be-all. It's really about the faith that goes behind it. Just like from the Southern Baptists, I was raised in a Pentecostal church, so I'm familiar with the Baptist church, and it's really all about faith. You know, when I go into battle, which it really is a war, I prepare just like any Marine or soldier would, and I go in toe-to-toe with the enemy.
So, yeah, I mean, that obviously gives you like a proper idea of how difficult what you do is, I suppose. I mean, you say it's, you know, it's going to war. There's nothing more difficult than fighting a battle, I suppose.
Yeah.
I mean, it's. I think unless you experience it, I think it's sort of difficult for people to get their heads around how hard it actually is. And I just want to say to anyone watching, sorry if there's anybody who's been watching and their feed has been freezing. Again, Skype did an update just before I started the show, and that seems to have messed everything up. So I do apologise about that. So, obviously, with me, paranormal investigation, I suppose, is... I don't really come from a religious background, so paranormal investigation to me is, I suppose, more scientific. What is it like to be part of a paranormal research team that's religious?
We go in with open minds, one, because there could be a natural explanation. It could be a human purgatorial soul, or it could be a demonic presence. So, or since I'm a mental health therapist and a drug counselor too, it could be a mental health psychosis of some sort, or even a psychosis as a result of substance use. And so I'm able to differentiate between the mental health, substance use. Is this a legitimate haunting? Is it, you know, just in the person's head? Are they just lonely and they're seeing things? So really the difference is, you know, if it is a demonic case, I don't have to go anywhere else, whereas I've had a lot of paranormal groups. They're pretty comfortable with a human haunt, but when it comes to a really dark manifestation, they usually call me.
Okay.
Or another exorcist like me. So with me, I don't have to do that. I can cut right to the chase and get it done.
Okay. So, are demonic hauntings as common as they appear to be on television?
No. No, a true demonic haunting isn't that common. Now, it's common for me because I'm usually called in when all else has failed and, the family's on the brink of destruction.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm usually called into the most severe cases, and the most severe cases are usually the demonic ones.
Okay. And in your experience, what has been your most severe case?
Well, I just did a possession case about 2 months ago, and that was pretty severe.
Mm-hmm.
The person that was possessed thought maybe they were losing their mind, they were losing time, they were acting out in behaviors that weren't natural to them, and they had no memory of the behaviors or explanation for it.
Okay.
And but of course, back in the past, as with most of the cases I run into, people have played in the occult without knowing, the dangers, and got themselves in trouble.
Is it? I mean, obviously, we all see exorcisms and stuff in films and things like that. Are there actually any similarities between film and real life?
Some. I mean, the voice can change. It doesn't always change. The eyes do go black, but in a possession case. But it's pupil dilation. I recognize the eyes real quick. I mean, the whites never change, but the pupils absolutely dilate so that there's nothing but black. Which, in my mental health side, scientific side, I'm thinking, well, there's something triggering the neurons and the automatic responses of the eyes to
Mm-hmm.
do that. And usually only substances or brain trauma will do that.
Okay.
But in these cases, there's no sign of either one of those. So the only thing I'm left with is what I'm left with.
And obviously, when I always say when a paranormal team is going on about a haunting that's demonic, I always say, well, does that mean that it's a demon from hell, or are you just describing an actual spirit of a person who's nasty? So, have you ever? I mean, when you perform an exorcism, do you know that it's an actual demon, or is it possibly just a nasty person that won't leave someone alone?
I usually know the difference because I've had the sight ever since I was 4, and so I have another ace in the hole. And I usually get their names during an investigation, and I can cross-reference the names with the Infernal Dictionary and Compendium to find the different names, and 99% of the time they match up. And so immediately I'll know if it's a demonic. But there's an old Jewish thought that a truly evil person in life can become a demon in death. Since they've played for the enemy all their life, they're bound for hell, and so they simply play for the other team after death. And so, absolutely, it could just be a really bad person too.
Okay. And with demonic hauntings, do they tend to haunt a person rather than a place?
Actually, probably more places than a person. Now,
Okay.
as far as attachments to a person, there's a lot of demonic activity in that aspect, where we get into oppression. which is the second stage between infestation and possession. But it's very common, actually, for oppression to occur within a haunted location, because that would mean that the entity has taken an interest in one of the individuals, and so both the person and the place become haunted at that stage.
Okay. Right, before the show, we were talking about some of your appearances on television, the majority of which obviously were on the Tower Channel, because most paranormal shows are. So let's go back a couple of years. Now, you were on Ghost Adventures, and I wasn't aware of this because I don't keep up with most paranormal shows these days because I'm so busy doing my own things. So, could you tell us about the episode that you were involved with and the case and things like that?
Yeah, the episode I was involved with is called Golden Ghost Town. I believe it was season 13, episode 1, if I remember right. But their producers had called me from New York and asked if there were any locations around that were really haunted, and I said, oh yeah, Southern Oregon has quite a few. And so we went over to Golden, which is about 30 miles from where I live, and that was very active then. They were getting a lot of stuff, and if you're familiar with Aaron on the show, he actually almost went over a cliff that night. They didn't show probably 80% of what happened.
No, there's only so much they can fit into the show, yeah.
Yeah. And that was interesting. And it's actually a state park here in Oregon. And anyone can go to it at any time. And it was interesting, to say the least.
We have a couple of questions here in the chat. The first one from Vicki Mulligan-Ott. She says, what about the people that they call Star Child? The evil ones have completely black eyes. Do you believe in this stuff?
The ufology realm is something I'm pretty familiar with. I'm actually going to be writing a second book about how the manifestations in a haunting and the UFO phenomenon are actually pretty similar. As far as activity at home and whatever else goes. As far as the black-eyed children, I don't know.
You said something earlier that I thought was interesting about the different levels, I guess, of a possession. So you were talking about oppression. If someone realizes that they are being oppressed in a specific location, is there a way that you can go in and stop that person from a full-on possession? I mean, are there different, I guess there are different levels of possession in that case, correct?
Yeah.
And so what would you do with somebody if you go in and you think, hey, they're being oppressed, we need to stop this right now?
So what I would do, so I'll give the 3 stages, and then I'll explain my method here. The first stage in a haunting is infestation. That's usually where it's the typical haunted house. The location's haunted, things are going bump in the night, but nothing is really keen on anyone in particular. It just happens across the board. Then there's oppression. Oppression is the middle stage where the entities have now not only are still messing with the environment, but they're also messing with a person's emotions, and their minds and their thought processes. So what that commonly looks like is depression, agitation, angry outbursts, things that are behaviorally not normal for that individual. And during oppression, it's very typical for the entity to person a loner, basically drive away others from their natural supports, such as family, friends, spiritual mentors, what have you. That way, when they're alone and they feel utterly alone, then they can start really getting their tentacles in the person. Now, the final stage, which isn't very common but it does happen, is possession. And there's actually two phases to possession. There's what's called an imperfect possession, and this is when a person is taken over for a period of time, but then they can snap back into their normal personality, for a good chunk of time. It may look from a mental health perspective like a dissociative identity disorder, so that, they think they have multiple personalities or something along that line. Then the final stage is perfect possession. This is when the person is under the mastery of the demon 24/7. They don't have any breaks. They don't get a rest from this entity.
And so just a quick question while it pops into my head, otherwise I'll forget it. I can't think of the technical term for it, but is like I call it bendy bones. Where they basically they contortion themselves into weird positions. Is that actually a thing, or that you've experienced?
Sure. It doesn't look like the movies. So, people aren't crawling around backwards and everything else. But what it most looks like is a seizure.
Okay.
It looks most like a cold seizure. Their muscles will stiffen. They may slightly contort. There might be some other manifestations that go along with that. But for the most part, they don't have the bendy look to them. I suppose it's not out of the realm of possibility, but I've never run into that.
Okay. And obviously we were talking about your appearances on the Travel Channel. Ghost Adventures isn't your only appearance. Could you tell us about the others that you've done?
Sure. I did In Search of Monsters on the Travel Channel. I did their Jersey Devil episode. They flew me out to New Jersey, Mount Holly, New Jersey, and I investigated the Witch's Well in some of the Pine Barren area, and the hill that it sits on, and that was very interesting. And then I also did 2 episodes for the show that's coming out, from what the producers told me, this month on the 19th on the History Channel. It's called The Unexplained. Okay. And I did the episodes of Exorcism. On that one, I actually got the permission from that person I did 2 months ago to showcase their exorcism and how I do things and what transpired during the actual rite. And then the 3rd episode is Cursed Places. And so I kind of give some insight onto that. I just filmed last week for a show that's coming out on the Travel Channel called It Feels Evil. I was actually filming in Big Bear, the park area down in Southern California, when that 7.1 hit. And the cast and crew and I were all sitting on the porch, smoking and chatting, and we would just start shifting side to side. And I grew up in California, so I'm used to it. And
earthquakes are weird.
Everyone's running
It's a weird
around.
sensation.
They are weird. They are weird. Well, the trees were even shaking. It was moving everything.
Yeah, we don't really get earthquakes in the UK, so yeah, we don't get anything really.
Ever.
Well, it was like out of the scene of a horror. The birds were flying. You heard people screaming in the distance. Car alarms were going off. People running out of their houses, and And I'm just sitting there riding it out, you know. I'm just like, yeah, it's not bad. I can ride with it.
So I have a question about the Jersey Devil. So I think the story behind the Jersey Devil was this woman gave birth. It was like late 1700s. The woman gives birth to her 13th child that is born and looks like some type of demon. They call it a creature, and the creature flies from the cabin and becomes the Jersey Devil. So you're there shooting the show for Channel. So what was your experience with that?
It was, you know, I'm kind of a weirdo. I find it fun when I'm going up potentially against something. So what happened on the hill, they asked me to use my site, and I said, sure, no problem. And I actually saw who they would call the witch in the well. It was actually a woman in her 20s. She was levitated off the ground by about 8 inches or so. She had on a white nightgown from that time period where they have the ruffles at the end of the wrists, but the gown went all the way down to her ankles. And she was very pretty. She was brunette, but her hair was like blowing in an ethereal wind. The hair went out from her head at all angles, and I could easily see how someone would think she's a witch or, you know, a banshee or something like that. But I got the feeling from her as she was communicating. She was actually a young lady in the village. The older ladies at the village were jealous of her because she was able to turn the heads of their husbands. And so at that time period, the easy way to get rid of the competition was just to say, oh, she's a witch. And so they got her. And she basically pleaded for help getting over and for absolution so that she could move on. And I said, absolutely. So I granted her absolution, and the film crew and myself all felt that the atmosphere lift. It went from a heavy presence to a very light presence as she left. It was actually beautiful. But, you know, the question earlier, you know, how do I know between a human or a demonic haunt? Well, if I was new to the field or I went in with a preconceived notion, I would absolutely have thought she looked the part of a witch or a demon or something. But she wasn't. And she was actually sad and trapped at the spot of her death, where she was unjustly killed. So I was able to release her for absolution, and worked out fine. And no Jersey Devil in the well.
That's a nice story. I like that.
Yeah.
Okay, James, I'm going to give you a break for a second because we keep throwing questions at you. Because there's something I want to discuss quickly because I've seen it pop up on my Facebook feed. People keep talking about it, and I think it sounds hilarious. So, guys, who is going to Area 51? I mean, first things, I think the one place where they've gone absolutely wrong with this is the fact that it's everywhere on social media. So the surprise element's gone.
We're never going to catch them now.
Nope.
Phone home. Why would we do that? Okay, number one, where did this start? Where did the whole...
Do you know what I think it is? I blame the Russians. Because I don't think there's alien stuff at Area 51. I think there's like secret weapons and stuff, and the Russians want to know what's there. So I blame the Russians.
I agree with the weapons and the government conspiracy, but no. Could they have been hiding something other than that? Yes, but I think only Chuck Norris will know if it happens. Alex, do you know who Chuck Norris is?
Yeah, he's the guy that has a fist behind his beard.
That's the one.
I mean, I've never watched anything with Chuck Norris in.
You haven't?
No, I tend to watch more costume dramas like we all do in the UK, so we can reminisce.
I want you to watch a
anything with women in big dresses and men in suits drinking tea, you know?
That's definitely not going to be Chuck Norris, but I would love to see your reaction to a Chuck Norris movie.
Yeah, I mean, I think the only things I've ever seen him in is like when he makes a cameo appearance, like in Dodgeball when he's one of the judges.
You were gonna say in Dodgeball.
That's the only thing I can think of right now. But no, I mean, obviously we keep throwing all these questions at James and stuff, and obviously we've got more, so I just want to give him a break for a second so he can just talk about this whole weird, stupid idea that people think they can just run into Area 51 and get away with it. I mean, it's like they can't stop us stop us if there's a 250,000 of us or 500,000 of us. I'm like, I think they can.
I'm like nukes, maybe.
Well, I mean, I'm pretty sure that they've taken precautions already just because of the fact that people won't stop talking about it on Facebook. It's like, okay, this might happen. We know about it because everyone that's doing it is talking about it. So let's just move everything to Area 52. So when they finally get into Area 51 and they break into one of the offices, it's just an empty desk and a pack of Mentos. I don't know, it's...
All the good stuff's at S4 anyway.
They left all their post-it notes behind and just said, screw it.
Yeah.
I mean, because going back a while and stuff, during the Cold War era, they would make fake aircrafts and fake shadows and things. So if the Russians were looking via satellite images, they weren't seeing something that was actually there. So this is why I think this is why I'm going back to maybe it's the Russians. Maybe they've just run out of ideas, and because social media seems to be like their main weapon these days, they're just trying to use it to get people to run into Area 51. That's my opinion, anyway.
They call that population control.
Or that. So yeah, I just wanted to bring that up quickly. If you're watching, guys, let us know what you think about it. But I mean, yeah, it's just silly, really. And I really wish Daryl would choose moments to upload pictures on Facebook, because he chose it just as we were about to go live, and he uploaded a picture. And because I'm an admin on his page, I just keep getting pop-ups with people commenting on it now. So frustrating.
Let's give it a recap here. Someone asked who our guest is tonight. So we've got exorcist James Cloud on with us tonight. We have been talking about possession. We have been talking about your appearances on the Travel Channel. Sorry, I just wanted to clear that up for anybody who is just now tuning in.
I mean, let's talk about something that's not paranormal, and that's you're a therapist as well as all these other things. So
Yeah.
I'm assuming you kind of fell into that because you work with the church. I mean, that's my assumption anyway.
Really, I fell into it because I did pastoral counseling during my tenure as a parish priest, the entire time. But I was lacking the clinical tools, so I wanted to go back to school and basically get those clinical tools. So I now have a master's in marriage and family therapy, as well as a doctorate in divinity and theology. So a double doctorate and a third PhD in general psychology.
Okay.
So,
and I'm assuming that helps a lot. I'm assuming that helps a lot with your work in terms of the paranormal field.
It does, yeah.
And another thing I wanted to ask as well. Obviously, I read recently that, well, not recently, but I mean, I've seen it come up every now and then for the past few years. Is it true the Catholic Church are increasing the amount of exorcists that they have because of a rise in demand?
Opened up to all things for but to teach as willing to go out and do battle, and that have opened the doors for, I think it's St. Mary's Academy. It's the, I can't remember what the name of the exorcist university is, but it's there at the Vatican, and they've absolutely opened up the doors.
And why do you think that is? I mean, is it because there's more evil, or is it because of an increase in mental health issues? What would you put your finger on?
Obviously, overlook explainable, so mental health issues. But one thing that my demonologists and exorcists under me and myself have also noticed is that the cases were called to get darker and more dangerous for the individuals involved. There's a lot of theories as to why that is. Accessibility to occult material on the internet, or the whole Ouija board thing, the Charlie stuff. Anything that creates a potential opening for these things that they're going to take advantage of. And a lot of people don't understand that. They think, oh, I'll just talk to Uncle Buck, that died a couple weeks ago on the Ouija board or something.
Yeah.
And any divination device is like an open channel. It's like sending a radio signal out into the
ether.
Someone or something is going to answer.
Yeah.
So just have to hope it's not something that you're going to regret.
I mean,
an increase in drug use? Because I know the area that we live in the South is very infested with drug abuse. Years ago, when I first started my career in the medical profession, I worked in a substance abuse clinic. And I've absolutely encountered people who you would swear you could throw a Bible at because they were possessed by something, but it was the drugs. And so do you think that has led to some of the increase in what they're seeing there?
Oh, it absolutely can. Well, the Greek word for sorcery is pharmakeia, where we get our modern pharmacy. So sorcery, according to the scriptures, is actually drug abuse. And it's most specifically psychoactive drug abuse. So, the increase of even like dabbing, using honey or shatter for cannabis use, because it's so concentrated, cannabis is actually a psychoactive at a high level, and they can hallucinate and open themselves up, just as a person can use methamphetamine and go into a meth psychosis. There's a number of other substances that a person can use that they'll go into psychosis and you'd swear they were possessed. But of course you have to differentiate.
From my experiences, I've noticed that people that smoke marijuana tend to get possessed by something that likes to eat a lot.
Demon of the munchies.
Yeah, exactly. You were talking. You touched upon the subject of Ouija boards earlier. Now, obviously, I'm not saying that they're dangerous because they can be. Are you one of the? Are you? I mean, everyone's entitled to their opinion. There's nothing wrong with that. Are you one of the people that consider them very dangerous, or do you think that they're safe in the right hands?
Well, I think that they are all potentially dangerous. Not everyone that uses a Ouija board is going to be possessed or is going to talk to a demon. Just like not everyone that drinks is going to try to drive and hurt themselves or someone else. But the potential is there to absolutely open themselves up for an attachment at the very least, so that they have this malaise that just kind of follows them. But overall, any type of divination can potentially have attachments as a consequence for its use.
Okay. It's at this point that I would like to announce on the 29th of this month, we're doing another Ouija board show. So, you know.
Segue there.
Sorry?
That was a great segue.
I know.
You're not worried about being possessed.
Just to clarify though, this will be the third time that we've done it, and nothing bad has happened so far. And the person that uses them, Karen, is very, very, very experienced. She's been using them since before I was born. Not that she's old, because she's not. She was doing it when she was young, obviously. And I'm 30, so you do the math. But she's been using them for a very long time. I mean, when she uses them, she calls upon her, I believe it's like her angel spirit guides. So, and she does. I mean, obviously she basically makes sure that everyone is protected before they use it as well. Whether they're watching, 1,000 miles away, or they're actually in the room with her at the time. So yeah. Also on the 29th of this month, we're going to do another Ouija board show, and it's been very, very interesting. Before we've had a lot of people get readings, and basically everything that's come through is spot on. So yeah, we're looking forward to doing that. We're not going to summon demons, although that would be interesting. That would make good TV, even though this isn't TV. Never know. I might get possessed by the Munchie demon. Obviously, I make light of demons and stuff, but obviously they're not good at all. So I don't think for a second that they're funny, because they're not. I can't remember if there was. I mean, Annie, can you just double check what people are saying in the chat, because I can't keep up with it because I've got so much going on at the moment.
Basic comments.
I just thought I saw a question.
We were talking about drug use. It affects the mind. Spirit boards are just a tool like every other form of communication. And then she also said that she's really looking forward to the next Spirit board show.
What are our partners saying to each other?
They are talking about Area 51 and anal probes.
Okay.
Yeah, that's when we do shows together. That's what our partners get on Facebook and talk about our anal probes. I think it was more my partner than yours.
I mean, we shouldn't. I mean, you being pregnant and obviously Helena being pregnant, anything to do with anal probes is not a good idea at the moment.
I'm not going to go there. There's a whole lot of probing that goes on with pregnancy anyway. That's a whole other show.
Yeah.
Trust me.
Yeah, that's a medical show. That's.
Yeah, that's not supposed to get into here. Let's see. But yeah, that's just the basic. It's just kind of everybody. We're talking about Area 51 and who wants to go and who does not to go.
Here's an interesting question that I've thought about before. Now, obviously, there's nothing wrong with people having a religion, as long as they don't take the piss because of it. I don't have one, and so I try and come up with other theories of what a demon might actually be. And one theory that I've had before, and I don't know what you might think about this, James, so I'm going to get your opinion on it, is the possibility that a demonic possession or a demonic spirit might actually be an alien. Because in my opinion, aliens use different dimensions to travel around the universe, hence why they're visiting our planet, and it's very difficult for us to get a camera shot of it without it being blurry or too far away or whatever. So I think obviously aliens can travel in the spirit dimension. So do you think there's a small possibility that a demonic possession might be an alien possession?
Well, a demon is alien to us anyway. So dependent on use the realm of quantum mechanics or quantum in multidimensionality, that even these entities that we call aliens, demons, whatever, may also be just multidimensional beings with different intents. We operate in a four-dimensional world, height, width, depth, and time. But if you look at string theory, they say there's 12, 13 dimensions. So
I've heard of that through the Big Bang Theory, yeah.
Yeah. So what we may actually be seeing, like shadow people and whatnot, is just a shadow of what it actually is because of the dimensionality. So who knows? Who knows?
Have you ever encountered that? Something that in your experience, whether it was doing exorcisms or paranormal investigating, have you ever experienced something that you thought was from another dimension?
Oh, definitely. Well, I had an abduction experience myself when I was 4 years old. It was in 1976. There were 3 triangular craft with white lights on each corner with the central red light, and they weren't more than 100 feet above us. And they were in a triangle formation. So triangles and a triangle formation. And my mom, dad was there, my grandmother, and they stayed over maybe a minute. And that's the time of a 4-year-old, whatever their concept of time is. But that night, I was the lucky one that had further experiences. And I was in the middle of my front room, and there was green, red, blue, and white orbs of light shooting all around the room, and a loud thrumming sound like a generator. And the noise of it seemed to almost rumble the house, but my parents and grandparents didn't hear it. And it went to a crescendo of speed with the orbs and the sounds, and then everything stopped, and it went black. And then out of the center of the room, a large gold orb began to form, and out stepped what a lot of people, it looked like a gray alien, but it wasn't gray. It was actually golden brown with golden brown eyes. It didn't have on its little suit or anything, so I saw its irises and everything. And it opened its arms and said, "James, come to me." And, as a 4-year-old, you don't have any points of reference for this kind of stuff. For me, I figured, well, it knew me, so I'll go with it. And I did. No anal probes involved.
Unfortunately. Unfortunately.
I wasn't walking funny the next day, so that's a good thing. But I was taken somewhere else. I can't say it was a ship. I can't say what it was, but there were consoles and whatnot, and I was led to a chair with 2 other children sitting on it, and it had like a tube coming out of a central silver pylon kind of thing, and the seats were arranged like here, here, and here, but in different directions. So the two kids were in the different directions, and I was sitting in the middle one. And I remember them telling me about different things that were going to happen or whatnot. I can't remember the particulars, but the next memory I have is I woke up and told my mom I talked to the silver robot guy, and I developed ulcers as a result at 5 years old from the experience because I was so racked with anxiety and nerves. And so I had to have medical care for those. You know, a 4-year-old that develops ulcers, that kid is pretty anxious. So, beyond that, I don't know.
So
I can't beyond that.
So I have to ask. So, I mean, I personally would. I mean, how does that? I'm trying to figure out how to word the question. I suppose in a way, does that your experience with that? Does that test your faith?
No. I know for myself that from the scriptures we know about the Grigori, the Watchers, that came down from the heavens and cohabitated with the women in Genesis 6 and created a hybrid offspring of Nephilim, Anakim, and Rephaim, to say the least.
I didn't know the Bible was so sexy.
What is it?
Sorry?
What's that?
I didn't know the Bible had such sexy stories.
Oh, it's got some very sexy stories in it.
Absolutely.
Yep.
But there's so much of the Bible too, without getting into a super biblical conversation.
we haven't got time to go into like the depths of the Bible. It's too big. It's a very thick book.
You're talking about that it seems like in modern day it's kind of ignored, pushed to the side a little bit, kind of like the book of Revelation. There's parts that you cannot talk about, I guess.
I mean, obviously, I'm not. I mean, you know, I think the only thing I can remember from the Bible is probably Genesis, how the world was made, and Adam and Eve, and all that stuff. But I didn't realise there's things in the Bible that you could actually read and think, huh, that could be aliens. I haven't really thought about it like that.
Well, so another great incident happened with Elijah and Elisha in, I think it was the book of Kings, 1st or 2nd Kings, I can't remember. But Elijah and Elisha were standing overlooking a battlefield, and they saw the enemy encampment, and Elisha was freaking out, and Elijah says, "What are you freaking out about?" Yeah, I'm paraphrasing, obviously, but he's like, "There's too many of them. We can't possibly fight these guys." And Elijah looked at Elijah and says, "There's more with us than them." And Elisha says, "What are you talking about?" And Elijah looked at Elisha at Elisha and said, "Lord, open his eyes so he can see." And above the enemy encampment was fiery chariots hovering. And those fiery chariots caused mayhem in the camp so that the entire enemy fled in the middle of the night.
Mm-hmm. And there's one other thing as well I can think of that you could say was thanks to some sort of alien tech, I suppose, and that was I can't go into massive details, but it's to do with bringing down the walls of Jericho, and the fact they just suddenly collapsed. And I think I was watching a documentary at one point, and they were talking about the possibility that it was some sort of subsonic wave of some kind that could have done it.
Sure.
So
well,
alien tech.
Yeah. Well, in part of that procession, the 7 days proceeding around the walls of Jericho, the Ark of the Covenant was being brought along with it. And we know that was a massive source of God's power, or you could look at it just as tech, that we still have no idea how it operated. But we know that no one could touch it straight on unless they wanted to die. So, yeah.
Let's talk about as we're coming towards the end of the show. Let's just quickly talk about any future plans, any events or things that you're going to be doing in the next, say, few months or year, whatever.
Okay. I usually don't have anything on my docket. I usually will get emails from producers or whatnot, and they'll say, "Hey, you want to do this or that?"
Mm-hmm.
So, but I'm sure I'll be having radio shows coming up. I do a lot of those. Of course, I have my book that I wrote that actually just started a diary of the things that happened to both lines of my family, mainly my mother's line, because she's had the sight ever since she was little, and she actually had the visitation when she was 4. So I'm not sure what the correlation is with the age of 4, but there's something there. But she's seen much more than I have, and I relate a lot of those stories in my book from that. And that's called Walking with Ghosts, an Exorcist Memoir of the Paranormal, and that's on Amazon. I plan to write a second book here, looking at exactly the haunting, demonic, as well as the UFO and UFO correlation, as well as bringing up the potential correlations that are in the scriptures too with that. And so I think that's going to be a pretty expansive book. But as far as anything coming up, I'd love to do Paracons or whatnot, but haven't been invited yet, and that's okay. But who knows? I never know until it happens.
And the show that you recorded recently, you have to forgive me, I've forgotten what show that was called. Did you say that was going to be out soon on television?
Yeah, the one I did on the History Channel is called The Unexplained. That one's going to be coming out July 19th, from what I've been told.
Okay, so that'll be this week, yep.
And then I just finished filming one last week called It Feels Evil, and I worked with the cast on that one. So that one is going to be very interesting to watch too, and that'll be on the Travel Channel. Probably the way production times work, I would guesstimate in the fall, most likely. And from what I've heard, it's like a 4-episode mini-series.
Okay. So guys, don't forget to check that out, because it would be, it sounds really awesome. Anything to do with anything slightly paranormal on the History Channel has always interests me. So that includes where I got the Walls of Jericho information from. Guys, obviously one of our viewers is saying that she's not really a believer in demonic possessions or anything like that, which is fine, because everyone's entitled to their own opinions. As the almighty Zach Bagans says, there are things in this world that we just do not understand. And there are a lot of things in this world that I do not understand. God knows why I'm doing this show. It's the world is a mystery. There's so many things that happen that we can't comprehend. There's no way the human brain can comprehend how big the universe is. If you start thinking about it, you're going to realise how insignificant your life is, which I'm doing now.
Your life is so significant, Alex. If anything happened to you, we wouldn't know how to move on.
Well, Annie, you might not be significant in any way in the universe at all, but you're significant in my life, and that's what matters. Even though my life is insignificant.
That's all we need is each other, right? I guess at the end of the day.
So I mean, demonic possession, demons, aliens. Who knows? I mean, I don't think we'll truly find out what any of this means until we actually die. So, looking forward to that. I'm sure you are as well if you're watching me blab on about crap. I don't know what the hell I'm talking about. So, guys, thank you for tuning in. Thank you for taking the time to comment and tell me how useless I am. Annie, what have you got coming up on your show this week?
Coming up on Tuesday night, I have a good friend of mine. His name is Robbie Thomas. Robbie is
psychic detective.
He is the psychic detective
from Canada. Yeah, I know who Robbie is.
Yes, he's like my one Canadian friend.
Everyone needs one Canadian friend.
Everybody has one Canadian friend, and Robbie is mine. I've known Robbie for quite some time, and he's going to come on the show and talk about a book that I've actually read. It's very good. And talk about some of the cases that he has contributed to as far as law enforcement is concerned. So that'll be Tuesday night, 8 p.m. Eastern, back here on Paranormal Warehouse.
I mean, personally, my favourite psychic detective is James Rhodey. Rather, the character he plays in Psych. If you haven't watched it, you should watch it. It's brilliant. He's not actually a psychic. He's just very observant.
Yeah. It's very interesting. That's how they... But Robbie has some great stories, and we're going to talk about a couple of them, including one of his ongoing cases that kind of started in the book and is still going on.
I mean, this is the American Ghost Hunter show, but let's just talk about how awesome Canada is for a second. Free healthcare and marijuana. I mean, they're the best.
And they have got it right.
And they also have the Trailer Park Boys.
And they Trailer Park. Bubbles is, he's got everything. He's got cats and Canadians.
Bubbles is my Lord and Saviour. Love that guy. But guys, obviously, I'm just kidding around. I mean, the fact that Canada has free healthcare, that's no joke. That's brilliant. We have it as well in the UK. So, but enough bragging. Guys, thank you so much for tuning in. I'm only messing about, obviously. This is the American Ghost Hunter show, and God bless America. In fact, God bless everyone. And thank you for tuning in. Thank you, James, so much for coming on. You're a very interesting guy with a lot of interesting stories. I'm sure we could talk for longer, but obviously we don't have time. And thank you, Annie, for hosting with me. Next week, I have a friend of mine called Joe Fatali on the show. And Ashley will be hosting with me that week. And then the week after, Ashley Storm. And then the week after that, another friend of mine will be our guest. She's been on the show before, Ashley Godwin, who you may know was on the original, well, not the original Ghost Hunters, but Ghost Hunters International. So she'll be back on talking about the various Xing that she's been doing, and Greg will be back that week as my co-host. Ashley Storm is actually going to be investigating Broken Bow Asylum this week on the Friday night on our American Ghost Hunter Show Facebook page. You can actually buy tickets. We don't get any money from it. All the money goes to the location. So if you're interested, you actually buy tickets and investigate with Ashley at the Broken Bow Asylum somewhere in Oklahoma. I don't know whereabouts. I mean, is Oklahoma even a state? I don't know.
Indeed.
Sorry?
Yeah.
It is a state.
Okay, there you go. So somewhere in Oklahoma, which doesn't really narrow it down because I'm sure it's massive. And on Saturday, Greg will be live on and off from MadCon Part 2. Are you going to be there?
Yes,
Annie?
yes. Shay and I will be at MadCon on Saturday, which is a fundraiser for cystic fibrosis. So, Madison, Ohio, Madison Seminary They're going to be there. I think it starts at 10 a.m., goes to 5 p.m., and yeah, we will be there.
So yeah, guys, check that out. Greg will be. I think he's going to be on Paranormal Warehouse as well as the American Ghost Hunter Show Facebook page. He'll be showing you guys around the actual Paracon itself, talking to some of the guests, and then in the evening, obviously, there's a paranormal investigation which he will be going live on. So check that out. And yeah, like I said, on the 29th, we'll be doing some more Ouija board readings. They're both shows that we've done before, been really successful. I also want to apologise for not being able to do a show last week. Obviously, we had a bereavement in the family, so I've been dealing with that. So I've been spending a lot of time away from home. So yeah, again, apologies that there wasn't a show last week, which is a shame because Annie was going to be on with Brendan. Although it's probably best because Brendan's shaved and he just looks like a sex offender now. So
Fear back because I begged him not to shave his face again. I hid his razor this weekend. So
why? Why did he do it? Just, I mean, you know.
it was a freak
Beard's good.
accident. Like,
It's a freak. He fell and slipped on his razor and then just kept doing it.
over and over and over again. That's how all accidents happen.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, guys, thank you for tuning in. Thank you, James. Thank you, Annie. And we'll see you next week. I hope you enjoy the rest of your evening or day or whatever whatever time of day it is over where you are. So, guys, thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you next week.